This docuseries based on the Innocence Project paved the way for us to delve deeper into the dark side of the world where a justice system fails to protect innocent people from getting punished for false suspicions. In the first episode, we see the case of Courtney Smith, a 3-year-old little girl who was abducted late at night on the 15th of September 1990 from her home in Brooksville, Mississippi. Welcome back to Documentary Recap. In today's video, we'll be going through a true crime docuseries about 2 innocent individuals who were falsely convicted of murdering little girls titled The Innocence Files from the year 2020. Courtney Smith shared her bedroom with her 2 sisters, and her elder sister was the only witness. She claimed that she saw Levin Brooks, her mother's ex-boyfriend, kidnap her. Courtney's body was later found in a creek nearby, and she had been sexually assaulted. When Levin was convicted, the bite marks on her hands were the only evidence against him. In 1992, another 3-year-old girl, Christine Jackson, was kidnapped and assaulted in the same way, while Brooks remained in prison. During the investigation, the cops suspected that Kennedy Brewer, who was dating the victim's mother, could have killed Christine, and he was convicted. When a DNA test was taken in 2001, it was clear that Brooks and Brewer were innocent and had not assaulted the girls. Justin Albert Johnson, who was a suspect in Courtney Smith's case, later confessed to having committed both the murders. The authorities later determined that the bite marks were likely caused by wildlife. Yet, Brooks was discharged only in 2008 and passed away 10 years later from cancer. In the next episode, a case about Teresa Perron was explained. She resided in Newport, Virginia, and was assaulted in 1982. One night, a stranger broke into her family's house, murdered her husband, and abducted Teresa. The only detail about the stranger that Teresa could remember was that he was a sailor. Keith Allen Harward, a sailor, became the prime suspect and was arrested. After a guard claimed that he had returned to the base in the night of the incident in a blood-covered uniform, he was arrested, though the only evidence against him was bite marks in the victim's confession. A few years later, DNA testing revealed that Harward was not guilty. Jerry Crotty, another sailor, was the actual criminal, and he was later arrested. In the next episode, the Donald Sarpy case is explained. It portrays how cops can easily manipulate suspects. The evidence gathered during the investigation explained that Frankie Carrillo had murdered Donald just to prove himself to the Young Crowd gang. But finally, it was found that the story about Carrillo was completely cooked up by the cops, and thus he was exonerated in 2011. The next episode explains Hainsworth's case. He was an innocent 18-year-old who was suspected to have sexually assaulted Janet Burke in 1984, who was living in Richmond, Virginia. He was also blamed to have attacked and similarly raped another 4 women. He was arrested because an eyewitness wrongly picked him from a police lineup. Here also, a DNA test helped find the real culprit, and it was not Hainsworth, it was Haines' neighbor, and it turned out he had done the same with many other women. When Tae Jung-ho was shot in Philadelphia in 1991, the only detail that was available about the murder was that the shooter was driving a white car. After days of investigation, even though some details didn't match, Chester Hallman was arrested as a suspect just based on a false testimony given by his passenger, Deirdre Jonas. When it was revealed that Jonas had given false statements, Hallman was dismissed in the year 2019. The real shooter is still at large. The next episode explores a dangerous robbery that happened in April 2003 in a store in Houston, Texas. The shopkeeper was shot dead during the incident, and Alfred Dwayne Brown, Elijah Jobert, and Dashan Gillespie were arrested for the murder. Though Brown claimed he was at his girlfriend's place at the time of the shooting, the others maintained that he was the murderer. His girlfriend was imprisoned on perjury charges for 4 months and then forced to change her testimony to go against Brown. Ultimately, in 2019, he was issued a certificate of innocence. In the final episode, we see the case of Kenneth Winnimko, who was suspected of breaking into the house of a woman who resided in Clinton, Michigan in April of 1994. Even though the assailant blindfolded the victim, the police urged her to describe her assailant to a sketch artist. With the semen samples collected from the victim's house in the DNA test, it was found that it was not Winnimko but another unknown man. Thus, he was exonerated in 2003. What do you think about this docuseries? Comment your thoughts below.